Welcome to a special Talking Feds one-on-one interview. The torrent of Trump news has for now given way to the terrible drama playing out this weekend in Israel, which awakened yesterday to news of invasion of Hamas forces in the southern part of the country by air, land, and sea, and now finds itself in the midst of its most serious war in at least 50 years. The problem of a generation ago of waiting for a slow trickle of news is today the opposite, a surfeit of sources on traditional and social media, particularly where Israel is concerned, because that country engenders supporters and antagonists of all stripes. There will no doubt be an extensive process within the country of understanding how it came to be vulnerable to such a surprise and large-scale attack. For now, it's paramount to know just what has happened in the last 40 hours or so and what the next days are likely to hold. To that end, I'm really happy to welcome to this one-on-one YouTube Noa Tishby, who in a previous life was a well-known Israeli actress and producer, but has emerged in recent years as one of this country's, she divides her time between LA and Tel Aviv, most clear-headed political commentators and defenders of Zionism. We previously spoke with her about her best-selling book, Israel, A Simple Guide to the Most Misunderstood Country on Earth. Noa, thanks very much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So the events of these last 40 hours or so are being roundly characterized in Israel and elsewhere as Israel's 9/11. Do you think that's accurate, and why or why not?
I think it's absolutely accurate, with some comparisons that are even worse. So in 9/11, the enemy was far away. 9/11 was a shocking surprise. Percentage-wise, it's not dissimilar to numbers of casualties that we're having right now. But in 9/11, we had to chase the enemy down in some caves in all sorts of places. Over here, our enemy is 30 miles from our homes or right across the border. That's the difference between Israel's 9/11. 9/11 was one of the most horrific events in the history of the world and the history of America. We didn't have these close-ups of children.
This does strike me as a totally searing combination of the sort of technology and military style planning of 9/11 with the sort of most brutal one-to-one, yes, slaughter and rape and the like.
This is our generation's Jewish pogrom, Holocaust, expulsion, Kristallnacht. This is for every person who's Jewish who's watching this right now, and for every person who's not Jewish. This is our generation's calamity.
Worst day in Israeli history since 48, it sounds like you're thinking, yeah?
This is the worst day in Jewish history of the last, since the Holocaust.
All right. Let me try. It's only because I know your time is short, and I want to move to through as many of the facts as we can, because we know where Israel's involved, there'll be all these, especially as the days pass, kind of conflicting views. Let's start here. Netanyahu suggested the initial stage of war is complete and turning to an offensive operation against Hamas in Gaza. At the same time, we read there continues to be fighting on Israeli territory. Where do you think Israel stands exactly? Is in fact the table set for its counteroffensive, or not quite?
Look, I'm not a military tactician. All I know is from what I hear from what's out there. The fact of the matter is we have to be honest in where we're at. And where we're at is that this is still an unfolding situation. There are still terrorists on the ground right now in the south of the country. So this is where it's at. This is where it's at right now. It's still an unfolding situation. I don't know that we can talk about it in any sense of a tactical win or what we're going to do. It's a disaster.
All right, let me ask you. You have a very broad network there. I'm sure you've been in continuous touch with them. I've been there at times of much smaller operations. My sense from the few people I've talked to, I actually know someone who was killed, is that people see this as truly a different event that will require a different kind of response. Is that fair? And I hear your fury and minute by minute outrage, but do you think it's clear, trying your best to think about the next few days, that Israel is going to demand some kind of definitive response to the Hamas problem now, as opposed to just cutting the weeds?
There's the short answer to this is yes. There's gonna be bloodshed. There's no doubt about that. Um, and there's no rationaling with Hamas. There's no explaining to them that they should take a better option and that their kids should live in peace, and that there's just no conversations with them. This is a deadly organization that it believes in Sharia law. That right now the doctrine has it that all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of terrorists that have invaded Israel, the ones that have been killed, they went in on a suicide mission and they're now going to heaven and have 72 virgins waiting for them. And this is not hyperbole. That's what we're dealing with. So there is going to be a very strong response. But I have to make sure, because you touched on something before that I just have to make your audience be very clear about. There's no equivocation with what's happening right now. It is infuriating when people see what's going on right now. They see kids in cages, mothers and children and the elderly, and they say, yes, but. Yes, but the occupation. Yes, but the this. Yes, but the that.
You don't mean people in Israel. You mean
No, I mean
worldwide.
people in
You
America
anticipate
and
these
around the world.
voices, yes.
They're trying to excuse what's happening, saying, well, here's the thing. What allowed for this to happen is the constant demonization, vilification, and dehumanization of the state of Israel, very similar to what's been going on to the Jewish people in the past 2,000 years. So this is what I have been warning against for over a decade that might happen should we not worry, should we not be careful. Because when you dehumanize people for so long and you spread all these lies about them, I wrote a book about Israel in order to fight this fake news, because as an Israeli American, it was shocking to me how little people knew about Israel. And I'm like, all of this is not true. Yes, Israel is complicated, but which country isn't, right? And I'm like, you're vilifying Israel and you're making, pardon my French, but you're making shit up.
But you see a concrete proximate cause as well, Noah, if I'm not mistaken. So you really see Iran as being the broader moving force here. Yes. What are your thoughts?
Coordinated, inspired by, encouraged by the fingerprints of this event are smackly leading to Tehran. This is the number one destabilizing force in the entire region. Everybody in the Middle East knows this. That's why the Abraham Accord and the conversations with Saudi Arabia were so destabilizing for the Iranian regime, because they are the ones that are after regional hegemony. That's what they're after. Everybody in the region knows that Israel is not the big bad wolf in the region, that Iran is. And this is what's happening right now. This is a war between Israel and Iran.
And you mean that in an operational sense, yes, not simply general support and material. You think Iran was like, it knew it, planned it, it is literally involved. Yeah, or you're not saying that. Yeah,
I'm not saying that I know this, but I know this. Does this make sense? Like, I don't have information to corroborate this, and please take this with a grain of salt, and to your listeners, but there is no question that that's who's behind it. Iran has been the number one state sponsor of terrorism in the world and the number one sponsor of state anti-Semitism in the world.
All right. So in that general sense, at least. And of course, 95% of the missiles that are being fired literally are manufactured in Iran.
Like, there's no question about that.
All right, a very difficult subject, and that people will be talking about for years. I just wonder if you have any thoughts about this. It's sort of echoes of the Yom Kippur War, in that people were really taken by surprise in a way that seems that seemed antithetical to the degree of normal surveillance that the military has. What's any sense of that? How that's playing out in Israel? Is that adding to it? I mean, this was when I've been there and there have been troubles, you've sort of known they were coming, and this really did seem to be as unanticipated as 73. Yeah,
73, 9/11, Pearl Harbor is what this was. this is what this was. When you look back at it, you can obviously connect the dots and say, oh, it was this and it was that. But like the sad truth of the matter is, Hamas had shown extraordinary tactical and military abilities with the most genocidal and barbaric fighting tactics. 1973 was the war of Yom Kippur, in which all the militaries in the region have attacked Israel in order to destroy her. The difference between here and what happened on October 7th versus what happened on October 6th, 50 years and a day, not lost on them, is that in the war of 1973, an army was fighting against an army to stop them from invading towns and homes. And in this war, they went straight to the towns and the homes. This is animalistic.
Grant, and does it appear not just that, but that literally there, and even the sort of mobilizing response, things were, obviously the focus now is just what's happening on the ground, but people in Israel are consternated at this extra element. Yes, there seemed to be no kind of anticipation.
No kind of anticipation for
that the attacks were coming.
Not like that. No, obviously. It's heartbreaking to say as an American and Israeli, and it's heartbreaking to say, but no, Israel was caught completely off guard.
What do you think about the capture of hostages, how that complicates the situation, including reportedly some American citizens?
Again, animals. Who captures babies? Who captures a 6-year-old baby and 4-year-old children and 16 years old and 14 years old and women?
And 80 in wheelchairs, yeah.
Who does that? The answer is those people, the Palestinian extremists. That's who does that. That's who we're dealing with. That's what Israel's been dealing with for a very long time.
All right, but just I want listeners to sort of understand what it means on the ground. Let me put it this way.
On the ground, Gaza is a very highly populated place. What it means on the ground, Hamas is very interested in civilian casualties and always has been interested in civilian casualties. That's why they've been putting all their ammunitions underneath schools and hospitals and populated areas. That's what they want. Again, to the doctrine of Sharia law, 72 virgins that they'll get if they have more you're dealing with an enemy who's not only not afraid to die, but an enemy that wants to die. Okay. That's what we're dealing with. Reportedly, Hamas has 100 prisoners and Islamic Jihad has 30. So reportedly 130 Israelis, men, women, and children that are held in Gaza. Gaza is highly populated. If they take those prisoners, imagine into a populated American city, if you take 130 people and spread them out all around New York City, you put them at subways and you put them in buildings and you put them everywhere. How can the military fight against that?
And yet the military will, right? I mean, this is the thing about Israel, and I was there during the Gilad Shalit area. No, they will not. Every life, even the remains of people have been killed, they will be. In fact, so let me cut to the chase here. In previous instances, there have been these attacks. Israel has struck back, and after several days of aggressive action and doing all it can to get at what it knows are the Hamas strongholds and the like, the word comes from the international community, possibly the United States, of like, okay, time to back away. Israel knows maybe it has like 24 hours to do what it can, but then if it doesn't want to lose the moral high ground with the international community, it stops the operation. It strikes me that this cannot and will not happen this time, that there is a political, military, social exigency of not doing of uprooting the problem, even if it means having to take control of the territory, and even if it means having the vast majority of the world turn against it or be at least ambivalent. Do you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree. I definitely do agree. Listen, I've been a pro-Israel, pro-Middle East Jewish activist for the better part of the last 15 years. I have never seen people like Israel. So no matter what Israel does, there's a good government, there's a bad government, there's this, whatever Israel does, people always hate on Israel. Israel is the Jew of the world. Okay? Israel can do no right.
So
Right now,
let's zero in then on Israeli society, because it's been one of the reasons that people think maybe the attack was it's a time of a famous sort of unrest, dissension within Israeli society based on Netanyahu's especially judicial review program. You yourself have been involved there and parted company with Netanyahu.
I have been critical. I've not been.
Yeah.
I've been involved.
Well, no. That's what I'm saying. You, in fact, have been involved in the dissension, and in fact, there have been people who've been saying, we're so angry at the government, we will not serve if called. It strikes me. My understanding is that that opponents, political, social, etc., are to a person, more than 100%, as if that's possible, of reservists showed up. That at least the society has now set to the side the noted political unrest and is deeply, deeply united. Is that fair? And if it is fair, because a follow-up, because I know what will an ongoing extended war do to that social cohesion, do you think?
It is 100% true. It was always very clear that on duty day, on Tzav Shmone, everybody is going to come in. Sadly, it happened quicker than any of us thought. Everybody is beyond united behind anything and anything that we can do. Everybody is beyond united. As long as this continues, everybody is going to keep united. And here's the thing to remember: Israelis and the Jewish people, we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot. This is not our first rodeo. Your viewers have to understand the prism in which to look at this is thousands of years of Jewish persecutions. This is just how it's formed right now. This is just
Balak or whatever,
right
yeah.
What's that?
Bialik, what's the name of the perennial Jewish enemy? Anyway, so go ahead, yeah.
Every generation. And again, because I've been in this work for so long, because I've been warning against exactly this for years, I've been saying there's a calamity that is going to be fallen on the Jewish people through anti-Zionism. Through that, this is how we're going to suffer at it. Like I literally have been saying in talks, in events, on social media, I said, we are today not going to see in our generation gas chambers in America. But we will see massacres happening in Israel, and this would be the calamity to be fallen on the Jewish people. And that's what's happening right now. So through that prism, I can look at it and say that we're going to survive this. We have survived much worse, and we're going to survive this. But this is a very challenging time for the Israeli people, for the Jewish people, and for anybody who believes in social justice and human rights. That's it.
Final question. What will this mean for day-to-day Israeli society? I don't mean this week, but I mean this for the next months and year. Will there largely be people in the cafes, weddings taking place, normal business life, or will this be a kind of dislocated, as was this country in World War II, say, kind of existence in Israel?
My niece was supposed to get married on Friday. I was going to go to Israel tomorrow. Her fiance was drafted. My nephews were drafted. Everybody, obviously, everything is on pause for now. But of course, it will bounce back. Of course, we will bounce back. This is going to have to be we're gonna have to look back at this as a society and figure out how did this meltdown happen and why. But it will for sure bounce back. The Israeli people are extraordinarily resilient.
Noa Tishby, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.